This is SoulCharge, the podcast for women leaders to take the highest level of ownership of their power to create results now. I'm your host, Stacy B. Let's dive in. Welcome back to another episode of SoulCharge with yours truly, Stacy B. Today's episode is near and dear to my heart. It's actually story time with Stacy B. The story that I'm going to share with you is a journey of decisiveness, it is resilience, and it demonstrates a few key powerful tools that not only SoulCharge stands for, but that we want you to take away from these episodes. So I'm going to share a story from 2018, and it is a story when I was still in real estate. It was a very exciting time in my life. I was to be married, and it was August 2018. And at that time, I, had been in real estate for, it was 15 years, I believe, at that point, 14, 15 years. And at the time, I could feel that I was complete on some level in my real estate career, right? I had achieved the milestones that I had set out to, but there was always this piece with real estate that I was really excited to uncover. And that piece was, as a real estate agent, we constantly get opportunities for land. We have builders, we have capital partners, we have developers, and we have, buyers and sellers. And each is siloed in their own kind of, silo section of how the real estate deal comes together. And so as it relates to new construction and development, one thing that I always had a chip on my shoulder about was, if I, as an agent, would find a property, what would happen is I would find the property. I would then have to go find a builder. I would have to make sure that that builder had financing, and if not, raise capital or somehow find investors for that builder. And I would put it all together. I would literally construct this entire team of people. And the way that I was involved as the agent was I got to sell the property, which is limited in, that also silo of the experience, but also financially, that's typically 3 to 6%, which for the person that put it all together is just super lame. And so that was something for me that I always wanted to uncover or innovate. How can I take the real estate transaction from conception, finding the ground, to completion? And so it was August 2018, and I came across this 11-lot subdivision in downtown Eagle, Idaho. And Eagle, Idaho is built out. And so it was this infill property, and it was insane that it was available. And I was like, how is this even possible? So I ended up meeting the owner of this property. He had already done some renderings with a local builder. And I sat down with him and kind of understood what his vision was, where it was in the process of being developed. So he had purchased a farmhouse that sat on just about 5 acres. He had done the horizontal improvements, so putting like utilities in, making sure like zoning is approved, all of the city requirements. And he was about 3 months away from completion at that point. I knew that this project was mine. And so I wanted to put it together myself, right? It's like, instead of putting all these people together and just getting, a percentage of the pie, I want to do the whole thing so that in the future, I have the ability to put this all together. And so I made an offer on the property. At the time, the property was, I believe, like 1.25 million. I knew that I wanted it, and I want you to listen closely to this. I knew what I wanted. I knew that I wanted to develop this. I wanted to have the experience of taking something from start to finish. I did not have all of the hows in place. I did not even have the loan in place when I wrote that offer. I just knew, don't know how, but I knew that was my property and I was going to make it happen. I made the offer. I I then went to work. And by the way, many of you may ask, well, how did you make the offer? Because you need a pre-approval letter. I was able to get that piece, and so much so that like I could get it from my lender, which by the way means nothing based on like qualifications, right? So got that in place. But the thing is that it was a land loan, right? So it can't stand by itself. Meaning that like I'm not just buying the land, the lender's always looking for the end use, right? So I make the offer. I don't know how I'm going to come up with the money, because the end use is that this project is not a $1.2 million project. This is a $4 to $5 million all-in project, right? So I started calling all of my resources. Now, being in the real estate business for 15 years, I have a lot of resources, right? I have all of the best lenders in my back pocket and those connections. I started reaching out. I started going to every credit union. I put together a pitch deck. I put together, all of the necessary components to get a yes on this project. The problem is that I had never built a subdivision before. I had never built a home before. I had represented builders that built and sold, right? But I myself hadn't ever done it. So I want to just pause here. You could very quickly see how the cards are stacked against me. Number one, I didn't have the money lined up to make the $1.2 million offer. Number two is I did not have the experience to do this. And I want to pause here because you may have something that you're up against or you're wanting to try that you don't have the money. Maybe you don't have the time. Maybe you don't have the experience. I want you to do it anyway, because you can easily look at these things and look at these things as limitations, or you can look at them as opportunities. You can look at it like, okay, you know what? I don't have the experience, but I know that I am going to do this. I want to do this. And that conviction, that certainty ultimately leads you to the solution every single time. Your level of conviction equals who's going to meet you there. So back to my story. I started to go to work, right? I put the pitch deck together, as I said. I had countless meetings from August to November. Meetings, weeks. We're talking like 5 to 10 banks a week, right? No after no after no. Meeting with investors, different contacts that I have that, family, friends, angel investors, of course they want 50% of the profit. I'm not doing that. So over and over again, got no after no after no. And it takes a lot for me to start questioning something, right? I'm just like, what have I gotten myself into? And I didn't stop moving. I want to pause here. When you decide, you have to move like it's done. That means exhausting your contacts, whatever the thing is you're pursuing, exhausting that, right? Literally leaving no stone unturned in the pursuit of ensuring you fulfill what it is that you're after. So I remember sitting in my office and I see my friend Brian come walking through the door. And it's not a friend that like pops into the office and says hello. And so I was surprised to see him, and we chatted, caught up a little bit, and I tell him what's going on. I tell him what I'm up to, tell him that I've been literally calling everyone and just seeing closed door after closed door. And he says, I just had lunch with this guy who connected with this new banking solution out of Seattle. You should talk. I'm in Idaho. They're in Seattle. And I said, great, I'd love the intro. So he introduces me to this banking institution. They're a hard money lender, which means they're more expensive interest rate wise and points wise. And so I end up connecting with them, and they agree to finance me for the purchase of the ground, which is the 1.2, and the construction of the 11 homes, which, ended up being, I think the total project was like 4.5, right under 5 million. And we got started and ended up building that subdivision. I brought in a contractor for the GC role. I oversaw everything, processed, all of the budgets, all of the selections, all of the builds. was also the agent. And the reason I wanted to share this story is because, one, I know that you can see yourself in this story. You can see yourself in having an idea, not knowing how you're going to do it or pull it off. And I want to share with you so that you have an example of someone that has been in your shoes, so to speak. Maybe it's different circumstances. Maybe you're not building a subdivision, but you're starting something new, or you're launching a new leg of the business or whatever. But you can see yourself in this. You can see that you don't know if something is possible. And I want to share with you the steps to make it possible. And so that was the beginning of what would become a journey I could have never, expected, right? So many ups and downs and, challenges and unforeseen circumstances. And the piece in this initial part of this story is that so often we don't get started on things because we don't see the whole path. And that's just not how it works. There's a famous quote by Martin Luther King that says, you don't have to see the whole staircase, just take the first step. And the amount of innovation and ideas and, forward thinking, new creations that's, on your heart and that's in the world that is stuck in the creation process because you can't see the whole journey is unending. The amount of things I'm sure just in you listening to this that you could think about, right? Where it's like, if I just knew how everything was going to go and I knew the money was there and I knew the people that I needed were there, then I would move forward. And this experience, and I have many other, stories I'll share with you as we go forward with the podcast, but there are so many, my entire life is this story. And in sharing it with you, my intention is that it awakens in you that you don't have to see the whole path. You just got to take the first step and the next step and the next step. And faith is required. It does require you to be bold and daring, but that's who you are. It's just sometimes when you can't see the how, you can get caught up. So one of the other stories that at first was not a highlight of the subdivision, it was really it was crazy. It was a really crazy part of the project. So just to kind of bring you into the timeline. So I made the offer in August, ended up acquiring the ground New Year's Eve, 2018. We broke ground in February, I think end of January, February, 2019. So now we're going to later in the year in 2019. And it's the week before Thanksgiving. And I had just sent over the draw request. So as you build homes, when there's a lender involved, as you build each section of the house, you essentially submit a monthly expense draw. So all of the contractors, electrical, roofing, appliances, whatever work you did for the last 30 days, they send their invoices, and then you prepare those invoices and you submit the draw request from the lender, and then the lender disperses those funds so that you can pay all of those vendors. And it's all done through title so that you can have the proper protection with the vendors that you're working with. So there was a budgeting error. So I had a draw request. It was 100 and you would think I would remember this to the penny. It was $159,873, something like that. So it's about $160,000. And I submitted it to the lender, and they had made a budgeting error where they had incorrectly paid out the GC or something to that effect, where they were like, we can't cut. you a check. We can't fulfill this draw. And I'm like, what do you mean you can't fulfill the draw? It's literally the week before Thanksgiving. I am not letting these people that have worked, I can't not pay them. Like what? So of course it's like, what do you mean I'm not going to fulfill the draw? Well, what does this mean for me? Right? All of these like thoughts and emotions of like, holy shit, what am I going to do? And I remember, I'm very resourceful and I am literally known like that I can make anything happen. And that's literally what I'm known for. And I did not have the answer. And I'm not saying I don't always have the answer. I'm saying that I always will figure out someone that can help me get the answer, right? Like I'm very resourceful. And so I remember being like, I don't know. I just don't even know where to begin. I do not, I have no direction. And so after a lot of emotion, I remember going into my closet in my office at home and I sat down with a notebook and I just started brainstorming with myself. I'm like, okay, who do I know that might be looking to invest some cash quickly? Like all you can pay some points, make it like a juicy investment for them short term until I figure this out with the lender. Who do I know that might be looking to invest in real estate? So I made a list of like, I just let myself brainstorm. Free flow, right? I set the timer for about 30 minutes and I just wrote everyone's name that came to mind. I want to pause here. When you are up against a challenge, the most important tool, the most valuable tool you have is the ability to have a revelation that could change the situation. And the way that I tune into that is literally asking, like, reveal to me the solution about this. I want to pause here because if you are hesitant to get started on something because you don't know the how, one of the things that I guarantee you, I can assure you, is that no matter the challenge of the how, if you connect to your highest self and you commune with God on whatever it is you are facing, you will get the most beautiful answers and the most beautiful resources that you couldn't even calculate. So if you are someone that is planning and preparing and not going, know that your fear of not getting started, actually, if you get started, anything that happens along the way is small in comparison to your resourcefulness with your creator. Okay. So I like go in my closet, I make this list, right? And I'm like, God revealed to me like who is the person I'm supposed to reach out to? And I heard my late grandfather's voice, like out of nowhere, say, call Aunt Mary Lou. And Aunt Mary Lou and like family dynamics my family is not someone that you don't call your family in my world this and like, hey, I'm stuck, I'm in a bind, like, can you help me out, right? Like that's not the relationship with this person. Not that it couldn't be, but from my perspective, like that door's never been explored or even a thought, right? So I'm like, well, that's interesting. My parents just so happened to be visiting Aunt Mary Lou at the time. So I called my stepdad and I'm like, listen, this is what happened. And my stepdad was in construction. So I called him because he would be able to like understand and like maybe there's something he could say that could assure me everything was going to be all right. And he said there's no one he knows that's like looking for an investment. And he was at Aunt Mary Lou's. So he calls me the next day and he says, so Mary Lou actually has like, an interest in investing, and ended up that she needed to place that money. And here is where it gets so good. So I'm going to just tell you again where I was at. I had bills of about what did I say? It was like 159,000 or 169,000, 159,873. It was literally, I'm going to find that and I'm going to post it in the comments because I want you all to know that what the exact number was. So the challenge I was up against was these contractors did the work. I needed to pay a bill for like 169,000. It just so happens that my family member, Mary Lou, needed to place some cash. So ended up buying one of the properties in the subdivision as an investment. Here's this. I now have a sale. I didn't have any sales in the subdivision yet. I now have a sale. The net proceeds of that sale netted me just over the exact amount I needed to pay all of the contractors. And the third bonus, so bonus 1, I got a sale for the subdivision. Bonus 2, I got to pay them, and I paid them before the due date, which was before Thanksgiving. And number 3 is I got an appraisal for the subdivision, which needed to happen to justify the prices of the rest of the houses. So all in all, going back to my point earlier, I could not have scripted how well that challenge could have turned out if I would have sat in my closet and planned for months and months about preparing to launch this idea of a subdivision. It's in the momentum, it's in the movement that you can be supported. It's in the momentum and the movement that you can find yourself with your pants down or find yourself with 160,000 owed and not have an answer and be even more delighted and surprised and blessed than solving that one challenge alone by itself. And so sharing this with you today, there are so many nuggets in this episode. There's so many examples that I know will inspire you to get moving, to decide on what it is that you're after, to know that the support that's available that meets you in your yeses is undeniable. And let this episode be your sign to go do the thing and know that you're supported in the process. Are you loving SoulCharge? If so, hit the subscribe button, leave a review, and share an episode. We want to bring powerful content to women leaders each week so that women can be unleashed to create the results that they want now. Thanks so much for listening, and we'll see you next week.